Hey, and we are live. Hello, and welcome to the Elon Take the Wheel live stream. I'm your host, Ed Niedermeyer. I'm jumping in here a little bit underprepared due to some typically poor planning and scheduling on my end. But we got a great show, great stream. We got some returning folks, one of whom I see is already in the waiting room, and I will let him out in just a moment. I am just taking care of a few last minute things here. I need to go live on, let's see, on my Blue Sky, edit lives. Oh, okay. It says that here, let's remove live status. Sorry about this, folks. If you're looking for a polished streamer, you come to the wrong place. But this is the AT protocol, so things are a little bit work in progress here. Still working through all of our workflows. Okay, I'm now live on my Blue Sky account. Looks like we're streaming on Blue Space Stream Place, and I will now like to welcome back to the Elon Take the Wheel live stream, Mr. Lawrence Fossi. You may know him as Montana Skeptic. Lawrence, how are you?
Hey, great, Ed. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Okay, so as I mentioned just now, I'm totally behind on this. I'd scheduled a doctor's appointment that ended just enough time for me to be here, but it looks like so the call has not yet begun. Oh, the call has just begun.
Well, we need to listen then, right?
Just in time. Sorry.
.70 markets with fast, reliable Starlink internet. We're building AI compute capacity at scale faster than
how is this audio sounding?
And we're significantly improving.
Sounds good to me, Ed.
Most notably with the release
okay, because it's doubled up in my
month. And now I'll dive into each of those topics separately.
I think that's my fault though.
So with Starship, we completed 2 successful flights of Starship B3 in the past 90 days. Flight 13 demonstrated core capabilities necessary to achieve an orbital mission and return to Starbase.
Are we going to get Mark Spiegel as a special guest? No, I have to reach out to Mark. I would love to have him on, but we won't have him today unless
Starlink satellites,
he's in the audience and can hit me up, and I'll send him
to operational orbit.
Mark, if you're listening out there,
we will try to actually catch the first and the second stage of Starlink V3 this year, and we could possibly catch the ship as soon as the next flight.
Okay.
And it's difficult to actually explain to most people just the incredible significance of Starship. And I think perhaps describing it in terms of tonnage to orbit is a good way to appreciate the magnitude of the impact Starship will have on the future of civilization. So right now, we deliver roughly 2,500 tons a year to orbit via Falcon, and this is a big number by normal standards. The rest of the world, I think, delivers around 300 tons. So we deliver, 80 to 90% of total Earth mass to orbit per year with Falcon. Now with Starship. Our aspirations, and I think we will achieve these aspirations, are to deliver well over 1 million tons to orbit per year, and probably ultimately 10 million tons per year.
Howdy, Navigator.
So this is not
welcome
like
to the
if
chat.
You had a chart where you plotted things. You would need a very, very big table to put the chart on to see, to even see any of our competitors on that chart and to make that.
Ed, do you think he's going to reveal what
1
the
pixel
actual
high
payload was of
bar
the
chart.
12
We'll need a
13?
very big
No,
bar
no,
chart
he
to
won't.
Yeah,
represent
100%
guarantee
not.
you
SpaceX.
It was less than
Starship
50 metric
vehicle.
tons and probably less than 40.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's
I
worth
was
noting that
reading
we
some
actually
subreddit
encourage our
discussion of
competitors
this,
to copy
and
us.
the
We
cope
do nothing
was deep
to
around this
slow them
100-ton
down. We actually
to
launch.
orbit
We launch competing
aspiration.
satellite constellations.
They don't talk about this at
fair
all
price
for
is the
good
same price we
reasons.
charge everyone. So we do encourage our competitors to copy us, but it's quite difficult to copy something like
Of course,
Starship.
thank goodness there will be so many
But we
very
don't,
curious, objective analysts on the
patents
call to ask
as,
questions.
Yeah, this whole trope about
sort of
no
a
one can
landmine
compete with us
exercise to
thing
stop people from
is
copying us.
kind of
We actively
interesting
encourage it.
because
So
if the opportunity
anyways,
were
when
lucrative
you think
enough, I'm
about it
sure
in
someone
that,
could find a
go
way.
from 2,500 tons a year to 1 million, potentially 10 million tons per year. It's
A
really
million, 10 million.
Why not
ridiculously
100 million?
profound difference.
Yeah, why not?
But that is our plan, and I think we will achieve that plan. Regarding Starlink, it's also worth just noting that the Starlink V3 satellite is about an order of magnitude more capable than the Starlink V2 satellite, which was already a
anybody
very
who was
capable satellite.
waiting for the term order of magnitude
And
on the
we
first ever SpaceX
expect to
call
launch
did not have to
about
wait
an order of
long.
magnitude
Predictably
more
enough.
Starlink V3 satellites. So that would mean a roughly 2 order of magnitude increase in the delivered bandwidth. Even if our monetization per bit dropped by a factor of 10, that would still mean a 10x increase in the revenue of Starlink.
And how many of those are in
So
orbit?
I think people are really underestimating Starlink here.
If they had many of them up, then they wouldn't be having the density scaling challenges.
This is a big deal. It's kind of hard for people to wrap their minds around this, but
they have 0 in orbit. That's
like it's not out of the question.
Starship
that
has
at
never
some
been
point,
in orbit.
Starlink will deliver a majority of the world's internet, at least in countries where we're allowed to operate, which is the vast majority of countries. So this is important to bear in mind, and it's not in like the infinity future. It's
not the infinity future, so not the one that full self-driving is stuck in. Less than 10 years. So definitely not the one that's FSD is stuck in.
With the advent of AI and humanoid robotics and vehicle robotics and just a massive number of robots, the appetite for bandwidth will be much greater than it has been in the past.
What
you think
advent
of a human consuming perhaps
where's the advent?
Perhaps about a few hundred bits per second of
There's a lot of hype. There's an advent of robotic startups.
And actually the average human is outputting less than 1 bit per second over the course of a day, which is 86,400 seconds. Now
the important metrics for a CEO to have it
do billions of bits per second continuously over a 24-hour period. So this is why I would expect the appetite for bandwidth to grow dramatically with the growth of AI and robotics. And really, I think Starlink is the only thing that can actually service that bandwidth. Regarding AI, we're making rapid progress on Grok, because Grok 4.5 was a huge improvement. And we have Grok 4.6 coming out probably next week. And then Grok 4.7
wasn't one of these supposed to be AGI?
And we expect
weren't we supposed to have hit that?
Of AI development to improve dramatically.
Almost all the revenue
and then with Grok 5
from Anthropic
should be out before the end
Amazon,
of this year.
Competitors,
we will be incorporating the entire corpus of SpaceX.
It's hilarious
data.
that they even pretend to be a player in the
SpaceX has
frontier
ever
model arena.
Produced, Amazon, I think it's
which
Google,
is a tremendous amount over the course of a quarter century.
Other AI providers who are using the chips that.
And we think this will make Grok by far the best engineer.
By far the best engineer.
So this is these are all like very, very big things. In addition, of course, we are providing compute to others, and we are building and deploying compute. I think faster. Well, our rate of growth certainly is faster than anyone else, and our efficiency of compute deployment, I think, is also the highest.
Providing
so we expect to end this year with
they're using
over 2 gigawatts
Yeah,
compute.
which means that the whole idea that we're somehow compute constrained, like not just
probably
XAI as a
cumulative
company,
compute
but that the whole
online
space is
by
constrained.
the end of next year
Will be
several
obviously the
times
other players are constrained because they're buying
so
it, but clearly
it may,
XAI is not.
Let's say, be closer to 10 gigawatts
Which
of
is not
compute
great
than
for
5 gigawatts of compute.
for the narrative that we need space center or data centers
That's
in
the way to think
space.
about it. And going forward, we've decided to build exclusively on NVIDIA because we think the Vera Rubin architecture is the best architecture. We think it's the best AI computer, and we greatly value our close cooperation and
but
partnership.
Isn't Intel their
levels,
partner on the space data centers?
Right. This NVIDIA
So
thing was a last minute.
We're exclusive to NVIDIA.
Yeah, exclusive.
Now
that NVIDIA needs stock pumps too.
Yeah.
And this new capacity coming online will obviously further benefit the development of Grok, as will our Cursor acquisition, which should close quite soon. I think we're through almost all of the regulatory hurdles.
So they're paying $60 billion for Cursor?
And then with respect to the
right?
Starmind,
a stock deal,
right.
which will be
so you get more
essentially
sellers.
an optimized
NVIDIA is watching the
Vera
stock
Rubin
price drop below the IPO price and thinking, well,
computer. This is not some sort of far future distant thing. We expect to start launching these next year.
Yeah, because you expect Starship to actually work.
We think the design of
the
NVL72 VR computer is a much better design than is typical, than say having a standard rack style design, and so we expect to actually deploy this on the ground as well as in orbit, because we think it's going to be a radical simplification of the normal NVL72 rack. It will cost less. It will be more effective. And so if we're going to put it in space, why not put it on the ground? So I think that's going to be pretty cool.
Why not just put it on the ground instead of putting it in space?
In conclusion, the SpaceX team is solving some of the hardest engineering problems in the history of humanity. And I think the team is succeeding because I think we've got, in a lot of ways, the smartest, most dedicated team of humans that has ever existed. I'm incredibly proud to work with such a team, and I'd like to thank the team for their incredible hard work.
Yeah, again.
And also thank you to investors who have supported us along the way.
So the usual bullshit from Elon, but I will say, just in terms of cognitive and verbal acuity,
thanks, Elon.
It seems better than he did on the.
We had an exceptional second quarter, and today I'll focus on the operational and commercial highlights as well as the initiatives we are prioritized going forward. Starting with our space business, we remain the leading launch provider globally, with 78 total launches and 1,041 tons of mass to orbit delivered in the first half of this year, primarily allocated to our own internal Starlink missions, but with great customer missions as well. While our launch capabilities are key to supporting our connectivity business, we continue to have a very robust commercial manifest and a very robust and growing U.S. government mission demand, which drives revenue for the segment. We're currently launching at our highest Falcon cadence and are on the precipice of operationalizing Starship. As Elon said, the first two flights of our V3 Starship vehicles put us in an excellent position to achieve our near-term goals of reaching orbit, catching and reusing the ships and boosters, and deploying our V3 Starlink broadband satellites. Speaking of which, Starlink had a standout quarter driven by continued growth across our consumer, enterprise, and government businesses. During the second quarter, we added net more than 1.7 million Starlink subscribers globally, consumer. This reflects our best quarter of new customers to date, an increase from the 1.4 million we added during the first quarter. We achieved this by holding ARPU, which is the average revenue per user, stable at $66 per month compared to the first quarter. We ended the second quarter with service availability in 167 markets and have continued to activate new markets since then.
The market's
some
not
very
loving Elon's
exciting
brand
announcements coming soon.
Yeah, he's lost his touch.
Today. As of June 30th, our constellation of operational Starlink, broadband, and mobile satellites in orbit grew to roughly 10,200, with our 9,600 broadband satellites delivering roughly 800 terabits per second of total downlink capacity. Following a successful speed run test of the V3 Starlink satellites on the most recent Starship launch, during which we connected every satellite through every laser link, we intend to deploy V3 satellites into the constellation for operational use on the upcoming Starship missions. The significant amount of capacity we're able to add to the Starlink constellation from the V3 satellites will enable us to continue providing even better service. I think it's pretty great already, but to do so while serving more and more customers over the world. In fact, in the years ahead, we expect Starlink will represent a significant portion of global internet traffic, which Elon also talked about. We also see significant growth opportunities for Starlink in enterprise and government, on the enterprise and government side of the business. We believe revenue from these markets have the potential to reach a scale at least comparable, but likely exceed our consumer business as we continue to gain share. In the second quarter, we signed a major agreement with American Airlines, as well as activated our service with new partners, including Southwest, Virgin Atlantic, Iberia, and Aer Lingus.
Ooh, all the big carriers.
We have become the provider of choice among major airlines with outstanding customer feedback, but still have significant room for growth.
Shame on them.
In fact, we heard from one of our airline customers, shockingly, customers are flying shorter hop flights instead of direct, so that they could ensure that they're on a Starlink activated flight.
What?
They'd never seen this in the business
what?
before.
On
the government side, we won more than $6 billion in U.S.
because
contracts.
It's better than their
Q2,
home internet, you know.
supporting major Space Force programs that offer our nation mission-critical communications and sensing.
Sure, the airplanes aren't as comfortable
and we see
as
even
the Starbucks,
more room
but
for
the
growth
internet's
in this
so much
sector
better.
in this coming year. In Q2, we also launched the new Starlink mobile partnerships with international carriers, including SoftBank, NTT Docomo, and Spark New Zealand. Our near-term priority is launching mobile V2 satellites on Starship ahead of integrating the 65 megahertz of EchoStar spectrum later next year. This spectrum transfer was recently approved by the FCC and represents a foundational competitive advantage for Starlink Mobile. In AI, the industry is hurtling towards ever more compute demands. We're rapidly expanding our compute capacity to meet our own needs as Grok expands, as well as those for other leading companies such as Google and Anthropic. In terms of our own Grok models, the enterprise feedback on rollout of Grok 4.5 has been very positive so far. Token consumption tripled out of the gate after the July release, and we continue to see strong signals on usage and monetization for the model. We're looking forward to welcoming the Cursor team to SpaceX to integrate our engineering and begin to benefit from a combined sales capability. In review, our momentum as a business is extraordinary. Our engineering teams are scaling Starship and our next-gen satellites, while our sales teams expand Starlink, aviation, mobility, and global markets. At the same time, we're bringing on additional compute capacity and expanding and deepening our AI partnerships across a broader set of customers. And though I've been in this business for 24 years, I could not be more excited about the months ahead with all the exciting and amazing things going on. It really feels like we're just getting started all over again. Wow. Now I'll turn the call over to Brett.
In the sense that you still need to build a profitable.
We demonstrated strong results in Q2. Revenue growth accelerated across every segment. We narrowed our net losses by nearly half, and on a year-over-year basis, and we grew adjusted EBITDA meaningfully faster than revenue. Importantly, we significantly strengthened the balance sheet through our IPO and inaugural investment-grade bond offering.
And of course, stock-based
combination of our global launch leadership, recurring Starlink revenue, and rapid growth in AI infrastructure,
especially because
those the
employees don't have
operating
lockups
leverage.
For the most part.
Now I'll walk through the financials for each segment.
Stuck.
For the space segment, revenue grew 55% sequentially and 29% year over year to $962 million, driven by a higher number of larger customer launches and a favorable customer mix. Segment costs and expenses rose $389 million year over year, and we continued to accelerate R&D investments in our Starship program. Starship aims to quadruple payload capacity and reduce launch costs by 10 times compared to our Falcon 9 rocket, unlocking significant capabilities across all of our business segments.
Yeah, but why would you do that if you already have 85% of the market
required to support thousands of Starship launches per year, including accelerating Raptor and launch vehicle production, the build out of our gigabays, and making significant progress towards activating multiple launch pads at Starbase and in Cape Canaveral at Pad 39A and Pad 37.
And if they don't have
Space-adjusted
Starship,
EBITDA was a loss of $205 million for the quarter, primarily reflecting these higher R&D expenses.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, in the context of the commercial
Moving to
launch,
the connectivity segment,
it makes no sense
revenue
to dramatically, when you have 85% of the market, dramatically increase your scale and lowering the cost.
To $4.3 billion,
but yeah,
up 32% sequentially and 66% year over year. Growth was driven by record net additions of Starlink subscribers and a sharp increase in enterprise and government revenue.
I wonder where they're getting the
Starlink
growth
subscriber
Starlink
ARPU was $66, unchanged compared to Q1.
Well, they cut the price.
As we continue our global expansion,
most of this happened before
we're taking a localized go-to-market approach that ensures our product and service offerings fit local needs. While our geographic expansion may drive down blended ARPU over time, we anticipate continued subscriber momentum to deliver strong revenue growth.
So we're gonna eat our non-existent margins in order to keep the growth going.
Year over year, and represents a durable source of revenue, contributing to strong segment margins overall. As Gwen mentioned, we see enormous opportunity for growth in this segment, as we remain, for example, less than 10% penetrated in one of the largest segments, being aviation. Total costs and expenses for the connectivity segment increased $970 million, or approximately 58% year over year. The increase was driven by higher spend to support our revenue growth, including growth in our satellite constellation, increased R&D investment for our next-gen version 3 satellites, and incremental marketing spend.
Next gen.
As Elon mentioned, our version 3 satellites are expected to deliver 10 times the amount of broadband capacity and data density from our current generations, which I think we believe are already pretty amazing, and which are essential to supporting continued subscriber growth and higher value service tiers.
And, Starlink
income from operations from the connectivity segment increased 79% year over year to $1.7 billion, outpacing revenue growth and driving nearly 3 points of operating margin
value
expansion.
Of more than $1 trillion.
Connectivity segment adjusted EBITDA rose 64% year over year. And $2.6 billion.
That's on top of essentially, subsidizing the launch
revenue was $2.6 billion.
They don't have the customers to launch at the cadence they need to.
213% sequentially and 247% year over year. The increase was driven primarily by new cloud services agreements, as well as growth in Grok and X subscription revenue.
We got a comment from the chat.
Advertising
SpaceX needs 100 plus launches a year to stabilize Starlink.
As we overhauled our advertising platform technology to enable AI functionality and enhance self-service.
Government growth was 108% year over year.
In Q2, we entered into cloud services agreements providing access to compute capacity at our Colossus and Colossus 2 sites. The initial ramp from these agreements contributed $1.6 billion of incremental AI infrastructure revenue in the quarter. Total cost and expenses for the AI segment
total AI revenue was like $2.6 billion
year over year, reflecting increased R&D, primarily due to higher infrastructure
AI
spend
revenues
as we accelerated compute deployment. We meaningfully narrowed our AI segment net operating loss to $1.3 billion and turned adjusted EBITDA positive for the segment in the second quarter at $1.1 billion. The incremental revenue from new hosting deals generated high incremental EBITDA margins as we monetized available compute capacity. We ended the second quarter with 1.4 gigawatts of nameplate compute, up from 1 gigawatt in Q1 and 400 megawatts a year earlier. We expect to end this year at over 2 gigawatts of compute capacity. Total company capital expenditures in the second quarter were approximately $18.4 billion, of which roughly $15.8 billion supported AI compute infrastructure. The remainder funded ongoing Starship and launch infrastructure, satellite production, and global ground station expansion. Additionally, we paid out $856 million during the quarter under our spectrum credit agreement related to our pending EchoStar transaction. Our capital allocation priorities remain clear and disciplined. We plan to continue to invest aggressively in the 3 areas we believe generate the highest long-term returns: Starship development and production scale, next-generation Starlink broadband and mobile constellations, and AI compute infrastructure. Across all 3 of these investments, we remain focused on capital efficiency, return on investment, and preservation of a strong investment-grade balance sheet. The second quarter was transformative from a capital market.
Hey man, how's it going?
We completed our initial public
enjoying the
offering,
entertainment,
raising approximately $85.7 billion in net proceeds.
Elon's a little more lucid than he
with
was on the
a
Tesla
$25
call,
billion
but
inaugural
the usual,
investment grade
the usual
senior
bullshit.
notes
Yeah, no, it's not. The
offering
bar was very
that was
low.
partially used to repay our $20 billion bridge loan. The senior notes were issued across 5 tranches with a weighted average interest rate of 5.855% and average maturity of 11.7 years. We ended the quarter with $100 billion of cash equivalents, and marketable securities, and $47.5 billion in backlog. Looking ahead, we continue to see robust demand in all 3 of our business segments, but in particular in our cloud services arrangements. We see increasingly favorable economics with each agreement we sign, and as Elon mentioned, we expect the supply-demand imbalance in the compute market to continue. The current economics have translated into a less than 1-year payback on our new capital deployments for compute. For example, in the first few weeks of the third quarter, we've already contracted an additional $6.7 billion of cloud services revenue over a 6-month period that begins ramping starting in October of this year.
With who?
We believe this puts us on a trajectory, including contribution from Cursor, to reach $100 billion of ARR, or annualized revenue run rate, by the end of this year, based on our expected revenue in the month of December of this year. With that, I'll turn the call back to Andrea.
Thank you, Elon, Gwen, and Brett.
Was that ARR guide just for
today's Q&A session? We will take our first questions from the equity analysts.
Wow,
please press
that was the
star
implication,
one
but
to
you didn't.
And also,
you didn't
please limit yourself to one question.
So that would be a
Operator,
10x of revenue
please
from
proceed with the queue.
Q1.
Yeah.
That's like
we will now begin the question and answer session.
Well, what's interesting is
if you would like to ask a
1.6
question,
out of their
please press star one to raise your hand. To withdraw your question, press star one again.
Agreement. So
we ask that you pick up your
Grok
handset
is
when
$1
asking
billion
a question
business,
to
which
allow for
revenue,
optimum sound
annual
quality.
revenue, which is nothing,
if you
but
are muted
also
locally,
seems like
please
more
remember
than,
to unmute your device.
Like, it's both
Please stand by
nothing
while we
and also
compile
it sounds
the
like
Q&A
more than
roster.
that it should actually be.
Have they disclosed how much of that comes from Twitter?
No.
Your first question comes from the line of
Eric
like
Sheridan
with Goldman Sachs. Your line is open.
I mean,
please go ahead.
Do we know of anybody who's actually paying
Thanks so much for
to use
taking
Grok?
the question, and thanks for
investment bankers in the government.
Prepared remarks. Maybe just one on the connectivity segment. Can you discuss the backlog of enterprise and government contracts in that segment of the business, and how we think about that backlog converting into revenue, and what that might mean for the pace and cadence of growth in the next couple of years? Thanks so much.
So if they try to get to 100 billion ARR, like their announced backlog
we are quite
in
bullish
total
on our enterprise.
was what 40 odd billion,
activities.
47 billion, and that
I
includes
mentioned
space, where presumably there's a pretty big backlog
we received
there.
from the government.
So how are they going to go
$6
from
billion
current backlog of call it 30 billion in cloud
those are you can look at those
100
as
billion ARR by the end of the year,
and beginnings.
I mean, I think they're just extrapolating from their growth since the
some of which
deal,
we will
right?
have to compete. But fundamentally, we have the contracts in place to fulfill.
How much is Cursor
many
going to have?
phenomenologies,
Cursor's going to have
both
some of this is just bolting on Cursor.
Oh
yeah, that's a good. That's good
as well as additional ones that we'll be working on going forward. Enterprise revenue is quite sticky. We have never lost
Cursor's
an
only got
enterprise
$4 billion
customer.
of
They're
ARR
quite happy with the Starlink
Yeah,
capability
well,
that
as
we
of
have
last
right
June
now.
or this June?
No, as of this
we
June.
are only 10% penetrated in the aviation industry.
Okay.
Which definitely represents a
It's
lot
not
of headroom
that
for revenue.
No, it's not
going
Cursor.
Maritime, I think,
60 billion for 4 billion of ARR.
Starlink opens up the TAM dramatically. Starlink offers the capability that ships that don't really have much connectivity right now because they can't.
I like how there was an
afford
explicit
VSATs,
question about
we
like
can basically
government
outfit
launch
those
backlog,
ships
and now she's
with,
just like
Starlink
TAM.
So
Maritime
I'm
market,
quite bullish on enterprise, very bullish on government, and quite happy with the stickiness that we've seen in those markets.
Yeah, I'll just elaborate a little bit on that, which is that obviously in order to secure a large amount of enterprise revenue, you have to demonstrate and very high reliability, very high uptime. And in the early days, Starlink did not have high uptime. And there's a lot of enterprise customers, most enterprise customers, I'd say, that still have that maybe early Starlink experience where it was a little patchy. So we actually we're building up a large enterprise sales team just to go out there, meet with enterprise, basically corporate and government customers, show them the incredible uptime and low latency of the Starlink system today, so they realize that they can actually treat Starlink as a primary provider, not sort of as a backup provider. This requires just going out there, talking to people, educating them about the current state of the
seems like
Starlink
the
system and where
enterprise
it's
business
going.
is terrible for a system that doesn't scale
I would
density
expect
well,
enterprise
right?
revenue
Like,
to-
I mean,
to
enterprises.
substantially
I mean, I
exceed
guess
consumer revenue.
enterprises are more decentralized than they were, but like, your enterprise has to be super decentralized.
Next question, operator.
To avoid
Your
that,
next
that
question
bottleneck
comes from
issue.
the line of Adam Jones.
I mean, I think it really
Morgan
depends. So like
Stanley.
long
Your
haul
line is open.
trucking or
Please
long
go
haul
ahead.
transportation,
Yeah,
that kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I mean, there's
Adam Jones.
definitely
Elon, first one for you.
But like,
Just confirming, you said
at
you expect to be closer to
$65 a
10
month, is it
gigawatts of
that big of a
nameplate
improvement
compute by the end of
over
27,
5G?
closer to 10 than 5.
Yeah.
Do you have line of sight, or how confident is your line of sight on permitting, chips, and turbines for that? And then I have a follow-up for Gwen.
Adam Jonas is asking about turbines.
So we're actually aiming to far exceed that gigawatt number in terms of power online, power cooling, and electrical equipment. So our tentative target is to actually have 20 gigawatts at the power and cooling level online by the end of next year. Now, I don't think we're going to achieve 20 gigawatts, but we want to have a series of projects that cumulatively come to 20 gigawatts by the end of next year. Some of them won't pan out exactly on time, but I would expect that we still probably have
presumably just diesel
power plant
level, right?
Well, I know they have an
close to
agreement with
15
TVA,
gigawatts.
but I don't know that TVA can
So
just.
assuming that maybe a quarter of the.
No, but he's talking about new
project
deployments, right? I mean, you don't get that connected to the grid that quickly. So he's just going to use. It's just going to be a roll around with your diesel from Colossus until
that's like a logical thing to do. Given
someone
the relative
either
expense of GPUs
puts you in
versus
jail
relative
or
system.
you get a grid connection.
SpaceX as a company is
so
incredibly
apparently
good at
TVA is considering up to 26
probably
gigawatts of
outside of
gas-fired
China,
generation.
SpaceX and Tesla.
Yeah, but hold on, 26
companies on
gigawatts
Earth
of
at
gas-fired generation. I mean, that's got to be CCGT. Your timeline for that is 4+ years. And
including China.
like that's
So,
best case. That's like if you have the
so we're
turbines in the order
taking a
to
small amount
now
of the
and you
expertise
break
that
Oh,
it down
that's
to
between
that.
now and
rockets
2040.
and
Pardon me.
satellites and
Oh,
applying
yeah.
that.
Anyway,
So,
that
okay.
link is in the
Virtual
chat.
data
You
centers.
can check the chat if you want.
And we're
Great.
finding that even a small amount.
No, like that's not helpful for this year.
No,
rockets which are incredibly
absolutely
difficult.
not. No, if
applied to
anything,
data
the fact that
centers,
it's going
yields
to
tremendous
take
benefits.
decades
So,
to add 26 gigawatts, it tells you how
So
challenging.
yeah, we expect to have far in
Yeah,
excess
it's
of
nonsense.
the power and cooling that's needed. And then our understanding with NVIDIA is that we will receive a very significant percentage of their GPUs next year.
So basically, they're
Okay.
so
Thanks,
basically
Elon.
they're
Just,
just
Gwen,
like
just a
NVIDIA
follow-up.
chip rent seeker.
You were recently asked what is one of the more underappreciated parts of the SpaceX investment story.
Yeah, they're a
and
NeoCloud.
you said
just
robotics.
go by CoreWeave.
Yep.
Can you elaborate on why you believe that? How do robots fit into the
We're making the pitch for the
SpaceX
Tesla
TAM?
merger.
Thanks, Gwen.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, this is the Tesla merger.
Let me try to put something together for you. I think what I might have said is underappreciating the amount of connectivity that we will need going forward. And I think robotics, especially robotics tied to AI, like for autos and humanoid robots will dramatically
if you really
increase
believe
the
the
demand
space
for connectivity.
service
Dramatically.
agreement bull
Elon
thesis,
talked about
which
that
like
in his early in his
the AI service
I mean, you can think about satellites
bull
as being
thesis.
robots. I mean, they're autonomous.
That's fine,
and they
but why are
generally
you
do the
not just
same.
going and buying CoreWeave at 6
So,
times forward EBITDA? Like, I don't understand.
And
Like,
then,
and
you know,
there's a bunch of
in the
other
sort of
options as well that have longer standing
what may seem the
relationships
far
with
future, but will come
NVIDIA
faster than you
and
think.
don't. I mean,
You know,
just don't
using
face the
robots on the
execution
moon
risk these guys do.
to scale up.
Yeah. So I actually missed this
manufacturing
the
on
other
the
day.
moon, which it sounds like
Elon
super sci-fi.
apparently
Talking
bought a
about
company
putting
called
robots on the moon to scale up
will
manufacturing
enable
on the moon. What are we
us to
talking about?
build
Like, this is
the
crazy.
mass accelerator on the moon. And if you have a mass accelerator on the moon
mass accelerator,
and you have solar and radiator production on the moon, you can. I know this sounds totally nuts, but you can probably scale to 1,000 times the economy of Earth in terms of intelligence launched to space, but probably
he can't help himself.
Maybe even a million
just
times.
Can't help himself.
Where do the raw materials for all this come from?
You know, we are
ship your raw materials
up tonnage on the moon.
By the way,
factories on the moon.
How about discussing how Starship's heat tiles are defective?
And then it's like, well, how much
you
intelligence
cannot
would you
reuse
like?
it. I mean, that's all the investigation being done shows that.
Being a Carter
they don't want to
scale
touch
civilization.
Yeah.
Did that get that for you, Adam?
Your next question.
Adam Jonas's mind has exploded.
Citigroup. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hey, thanks for taking my question. One of the hallmarks of SpaceX to date is how efficiently the organization has used capital so far in its journey. But it's also no secret that the capital needs are significant to support your vision from here. Obviously, the company's moving fast. So I was hoping you could talk a bit more about the CapEx outlook across the segments, touch upon any areas where buying versus building might accelerate growth. The mobile strategy obviously comes to mind there. And any related thoughts on capital needs for next steps in extreme vertical integration like Terafab, anything that's needed to support future growth. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. I think we are very proud of how we have managed capital allocation over the years, for sure. You know, I think we are continuing down that path, right? If you look at it,
I think it says capital efficiency, like dropping 60 billion on Cursor
to date, and I think we'll continue to be. You know, if you look at the rest of this year, to answer specifically on CapEx, I think you should probably think that the next 2 quarters are very similar to the current quarter from a CapEx level perspective. But I do think, you know, as you look at longer term, I think CapEx really, I think for our perspective is all CapEx is not the same. Right. What we're seeing right now is a situation where we're able to deploy, specifically on the AI compute side, we're able to deploy capital in such a way that we're getting less than a 1-year payback. It's almost like your capital is becoming almost, you know, an item that you would put otherwise in COGS because it's moving so quickly and as far as monetization and moving into revenue. That's different than I would say historically on the SpaceX level where, you know, we're building assets that are going to benefit us from launch sites.
I gotta go do a daycare run. Pleasure chatting, gentlemen.
So
thanks for joining.
We certainly manage
enjoy the rest of the sci-fi
optimizing ROI on
we'll
our
do our
capital,
best.
You know, all the time from that perspective.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit to that. You know, as Brett mentioned, we are expecting to reach 100 billion plus ARR in December of this year. And it's probably also worth mentioning that our internal projections for reaching $1 trillion in revenue, not ARR, but revenue, have moved up from 2031 to 2030. So prior to the IPO, you know, financial projections we had were reaching $1 trillion in revenue.
What could have possibly
in 2031?
changed this?
We now expect that to be in 2030, and there's a non-zero chance of that being in 2029.
How long are this is like
your next question comes from the line of Ronald Epstein with Bank of America.
Yeah.
Your line is open.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
What a lot of.
Yeah. Hey. Good evening, everybody. Could you walk through what you learned on Starship Launch 13? You know, what was better than expected? You know, what was worse? And then, you know, how do we think about this in the journey to kind of rapid reusability? You know,
this is that, like, it's development hell. Like I'm kind of shocked that people aren't calling this for what it is.
Yeah, actually, Flight 13. I was a little worried about that Flight 13. Because think of Apollo 13, like things went wrong on that flight.
Oh my God.
This flight actually went incredibly well. The heat shield appears to be very robust. The ship is still floating,
staring at the
in the ocean.
floorboards.
And we expect to recover the ship and bring it back for analysis. So I'd say things look very good. And that's why we, assuming we receive regulatory approval to do so, we'll attempt to catch the ship with the tower on the next flight, which is tentatively scheduled for the end of this month. We expect the cadence of flights to be increasing rapidly, and probably a year from now, we will be doing at least one flight a day.
Oh, come on.
Possibly
a year from now. One flight a day.
Your next question comes from the line of Doug.
He's just not trying. I miss the old days when he at least tried to make this.
That was fraud because he knows there's problems with that. He knows. Now they can
elaborate on the
supply chain. Supply chain. I mean, this reminds me of old Tesla days where
that's materially misleading.
Of compute build out. And then totally appreciate the $6.7 billion in incremental compute deals. Can you talk more about just how you expect the supply-demand environment to persist going forward and whether you'll be able to keep this kind of premium pricing for these deals and sustainability? Thanks.
Sure. Well, as the saying goes, normally they would say this ain't rocket science. Well, actually, rocket science is literally our daily business. And rocket science is a idiomatic expression for extreme technological difficulty, and there's a reason for it. Because the thing, let me tell you what rockets desperately want to do every flight. They desperately want to blow themselves into tiny pieces, but then the engineering struggle is to convince the rocket
asked about AI compute
and actually deliver payload to orbit. But you'll note that some of our competitors do in fact blow their rockets up. This is not a reflection on their
unlike SpaceX, which has never blown up a rocket.
Incapable. In fact, I think our competitors are very smart people, but despite being very smart, the rockets still blow up. So now, if you apply a small amount of the engineering skill that goes into making gigantic rockets reach orbit on a regular basis reliably to terrestrial data centers. This is like, frankly, the New York Yankees going in and playing a little league team, and it's kind of ridiculous, frankly. This is like the terrestrial data centers are a trivial problem compared to making gigantic reusable rockets, and which are launched frequently. And the Starlink satellites also are like alien level technology. There's still nothing that compares to our Starlink V2 satellites.
Which alien species, Elon? Which alien? Is it Romulan technology? Is it more
than our V2 satellites?
Klingon technology?
So you take a small percentage of that engineering, apply it to terrestrial data centers, and you get an amazing outcome. So that's what we're seeing.
Yeah.
Now, from a monetization standpoint, if you say what's my best guess for monetization per watt?
No one wants to know Elon's best guess about anything.
My
we
guess
know
is,
the quality of Elon's best guesses
would be somewhere between $30 and $50. This is just a guess. I'm just, take a guess as a guess. But what we're seeing with AI is that the intelligence per watt is increasing rapidly.
Intelligence per
so that means the usefulness per watt is increasing rapidly. And I think anyone who's a close follower of the
token use
AI arena,
the latest model,
you start seeing smaller and smaller models do more and more amazing things. There's an argument that we may get to the point where even an H100 is able to deliver useful AI that's comparable to a human engineer.
An H100
if you
is equivalent to a human brain.
I think that's not an impossible outcome. So then it's like, how useful would that be? I think the usefulness is going to be extremely high. I mean, if you think of like, where was AI 12 months ago? I mean, this is 12 months ago, would have been August last year. That would have been before.
Yeah, but Elon, don't you know it's really hard to know where you are in the exponential part of a curve? Don't you have you heard about this? It's very tricky. It's very tricky to know where exactly you are.
I would say a shock to the system
in that curve
was how good Claude 4.5 was. And that was, 10 months ago, basically. And if you say, well, what about an AI 2 years ago? I think, well, an AI 2 years ago feels like something that should be in a museum.
Yeah, but you thought it was on the brink of AGI 2 years ago. Like, that's the thing. Yes, it has improved. Yes, it used to suck. But at every point along the way, you thought we were like an update away.
By the end of next year, it's not clear to me that there's anything that digital, at least, that AI won't be able to do. Based on the current rate of improvement.
I can think of a number of things.
Then look at the rate at which
create one menu for one restaurant that isn't like unsettling and off-putting. There you go. There's a challenge.
And one must always consider the limiting factor here. Limiting factor currently is memory. The memory output is increasing by around 20% per year. Now, normally that would be fantastically fast and amazing for any large mature industry. But ask yourself, is the demand increasing by 20% a year? No, the demand is increasing by 200% a year.
Yeah, for your competitors, not for you.
So if you've got demand increasing much faster than supply, then economics 101 would suggest that the price increases. It does not decrease.
Your next question comes from the
line of
Edison
So you're going to pay more for memory?
The line is open. Please go ahead.
Also, you're the Yugo of the market.
Thank you for taking our question. Wanted to come back on the comment about the 100 billion in ARR. Is there any way you can unpack that a little bit and perhaps kind of what it takes to get there? And then in relation to that, Elon, I know you mentioned you pulled the revenue target forward by a year. Can you maybe call out maybe a few things that gave you this extra confidence?
My expectations for analyst questions were in the toilet, so this is like a slight.
Well, on the unpacking, I think that the key there is it's really growth in all three of the business segments. But the biggest piece is, and we already talked about, additional business we've already closed in the first couple of weeks of July on the AI cloud services side. Yeah, but certainly, as you know, we've already announced some previous deals with Google and Anthropic that start to ramp either later this quarter or in October. And so there's a lot of momentum from that side of the business, as well as we're seeing strength in our own models and Cursor coming into the fold as well. So it's really all three segments that are driving that, but the cloud services piece being the largest contributor.
They must just be timing.
Who else is
to be clear, the 100 billion ARR in December is not a question.
They must be scheduling the payments in such a way that they can sort of claim that it's right. Remember how they used to do that with cars, where it was like the production rate. Everyone's like, oh, they're building this many cars. No. They took a defined period of time and built a certain number of cars, probably at terrible quality, that they all had to go get reworked. But they counted it as their production rate. I'm sure it's got to be the same thing.
Revenue generates what? I think the breakdown is probably similar to what we shared pre-IPO. It's just happening a year sooner. I will go back to what I said and what Gwen and Brett mentioned earlier, which is that we do expect a very rapid increase in revenue from Starlink communications from the V3 satellite.
Okay, but that doesn't go up until
because, like I said, more than 10 times the capability of the V2 satellite, and we'll be
We're
launching
talking about this year,
10 times as
Elon.
many.
Yeah, you need to have the whole
direct to
you have to have the
cell
constellation built out to get those
going up as
advantages,
well.
right? Just throwing a couple
So-
V3s
Well, you
up
have
there.
to get into orbit with a V3, which you can't do with a Falcon.
You know, so
Okay, and you
some
can't do
sometimes
yet
people are
with
looking at the
Starship.
sort of historical growth.
But even
of
then, even if
Starlink
Starship is
based on
already
V2,
getting
but
stuff into
we
orbit
have a
now,
step
you have to
change,
build out that
massive step
entire
change
network in
happening
order
with
to
the
actually be able to
V3 satellite.
deliver this upgraded capability. Sprinkling a couple V3s
Your
amongst the
next
rest of
question
the
comes from
constellation
the
doesn't
line
do
of
it.
John Hodelick with UBS. Your line is open. Please go
This
ahead.
guy is the guy with the $800 billion,
Thank you.
$800
Two
trillion,
things. First, Elon, just
$800
following
share
up on
valuation.
that
Excuse
comment
me,
on
$800 a
Starlink
share.
Mobile. When do you expect to start launching the V2s? Can you talk about your appetite for additional spectrum after the EchoStar deal? And then just how big do you think that the opportunity is in mobile? And if you could compare that to the broadband business, that would be great. And then secondly, just a quick follow-up on the compute. Looks like you have a big ramp in compute coming in 2027. How should we think of that capacity being leased versus used for to train Grok? I guess in other words, how much of that has to be withheld to train Grok versus that can be leased out to third parties? Thanks.
I'll go ahead and take the Starlink mobile questions, John. We're going to start flying the next generation Starlink mobile satellite. It's confusing. It's actually the second version, as opposed to the V3, which is the broadband, next generation broadband satellite. We're going to start flying those next year. And just so you understand, currently the system that we're operating uses about 5 megahertz of bandwidth. And we operate that through local telco providers. We have 65 megahertz of bandwidth available to us through the EchoStar spectrum, which gives massive increase in capability. Another way to look at it is we were also probably 10x the number of satellites. So simplifying, you could look at the Starlink mobile leveraging this, the next generation satellite and the EchoStar spectrum as being 100 times better, 10 times 10 better than what we've got right now. And it's a pretty decent service. You can do voice and video calls over Signal and WhatsApp. So we anticipate really strong uptake of that capability. As far as revenue, I'm just going to take a very high level kind of top down. The big three in the United States, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mo, roughly between them $600 billion a year. And I anticipate us to be able to acquire quite a few of their customers because I think our service will be better. We will eliminate dead zones, leveraging basically the satellites in orbit. It'll be better during any sort of natural disaster because surprisingly, even though space movies make space look super dangerous, is a pretty quiescent environment. So I'm quite excited about Starlink Mobile going forward. We will start to fly the satellites next year, and we will start providing service end of next year.
Seems like that ARPU is going to have to come down too, though. 66 is high for.
We obviously have more than one question to answer, but obviously if somebody's trying to create a financial model, some of these questions are you have to plug in some number here. So for Grok training, we do expect the percentage of compute that we use internally for Grok training to decrease over time and to have far more of the compute used for inference or for renting training and inference compute to others. So I would expect maybe 10% of our compute to be used for Grok training, something like that.
That's
your next question.
It's not surprising.
Grok is not much of a business. ISI. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
It's a waste of compute of 10%.
Good afternoon, and thanks for taking the question.
Not if you're really into generative
in the U.S. market.
CSAM.
I think a lot of us are trying to better understand what a U.S. direct-to-consumer service could look like. To become a true fourth U.S. carrier would imply well over $100 billion of mobile capex over time, much of it auction spectrum and greenfield infrastructure. So how are you weighing that potential build plan against an MVNO or acquisition path? And what's your internal base case on how far you'll take this ambition? or is this all a little bit too premature at this point? Thank you.
The spectrum that we purchased from EchoStar does have terrestrial components, so we definitely intend to build out the terrestrial component. So you will have not only the capacity from the satellites themselves, but you will have a build out of the terrestrial, basically the hardware and systems necessary to make a true mobile service exactly what you want it to be. I'm not going to talk about the CapEx for that. It's a little, well, I don't want to say it's immature. I'm just going to say I'm not going to talk about the CapEx for that right now. But let's talk a little, let me give a little hint, and that is
you're not going to be able to just get your customers to buy the base stations.
A cellular base station on basically the gear that holds a Starlink broadband dish. So you can have kind of these little femto cells around the country, and you deploy that as you need it. You don't have to necessarily spend, 10 or many billions of dollars in low band spectrum all upfront before you deploy your system.
Okay, so you're going to spend tens of billions of dollars over time.
That's why I don't want to talk about the CapEx for building out the terrestrial, because we have a lot of really kind of great and new ideas for how we're going to do that, and I think it will be quite CapEx efficient.
Yeah, that point is probably worth just a few more words, which is that
Tesla merger,
because this is quite an important point. Instead of having to deploy these very expensive and difficult to locate large cellular base stations, we feel reasonably confident that we can deploy a large number of sort of small stations, essentially, that they're really just Starlink dishes that also provide connectivity in the mobile spectrum bands, and have them be all over the place.
So you have to build a terrestrial
the Starlink
network
antennas
on top
are
of
located on the roofs of houses and businesses. So they're, that they've got a sort of a clear view for providing connectivity directly to cell phones on the ground, and in fact providing connectivity that is, we think, probably better and higher bandwidth than what is currently available from cellular providers. This is an important point.
I mean,
thank you. With the remaining time, we would like to cover some of the questions from individual shareholders.
Unless you have a merger with Tesla or something where you have a bunch of places where you can put.
We got a lot of questions on the progress for Starship human landing system. Can we provide any updates?
For Starship, well, obviously we need to make Starship super reliable for satellites before we put any people on board. But we are expecting to have a very high launch rate and thus achieve a level of safety needed for humans very quickly, probably by the end of next year.
Someone says, why not just issue SpaceX stock and buy AT&T?
Propellant transfer in orbit is critical to our both our internal SpaceX as well as our HLS ambitions. Artemis 3 mission is next year. That's where we will dock with the Orion spacecraft. We will follow that up with a direct to lunar cargo mission, uncrewed. And then we want to put boots on the ground, boots on the moon in 2028.
If Artemis happens next year,
For the Cursor acquisition, there were several questions asking about the combined product roadmap for the companies once it closes.
Well, Artemis 3 just needs, one Starship to get it.
I think we'll leave that to
without any propellant in it.
We'll probably make some announcement or discussion of that outside of the earnings call. But we don't want to jump the gun on regulators for the closing the acquisition. So we're trying to get the acquisition closed as quickly as possible. I think we're pretty close to that, but we have to be wary of sort of jumping the gun on regulatory closures.
Next question from the individual shareholders. Once you start launching broadband V3 satellites, how quickly will they translate into improved Starlink service?
Well, so we need
a question too.
Some critical mass of V3 satellites, probably at least on the order of about 1,000, but probably that's, I mean, approximately second quarter next year would be, I think, where we'd get to that point.
1,000.
He can't put one into orbit yet.
And our last question, is the heat shield the hardest remaining problem for Starship?
Look, I don't want to jinx it or anything, but I think I'd consider the heat shield problem solved at this point.
By the way, 40 to 60 satellites per launch. So do the math of what it'll take to do 1,000 up there.
Ship that is currently floating in the ocean, but all indications from data and our visual inspection suggest that that we have solved the heat shield problem.
Solved the heat shield problem.
He better hope he's right about it, because
arguably the single biggest problem.
If there's evidence that he knows,
that doesn't mean we won't make improvements to the heat shield. Of course, we'll continue to make improvements.
It's solved,
to the heat shield,
but
it
can continue to be improved.
We do not see any technical obstacles at this point to achieving full and rapid reusability.
Thank you. This concludes today's call. You can reach us at
He answered the question
ir.spacex.com,
directly.
and we will see you next quarter. Cheers.
Yeah. No,
This concludes today's call. Thank you for attending. You may now disconnect.
Oh, finally. Yeah. So that was an interesting call in light of the last Tesla earnings. I mean, he was so incoherent on that last call that it was sort of hard not to assume that that's sort of what we should expect. So on some level, yeah, like I said, his personal health, drug intake, whatever, is being managed a little bit more tightly for this call.
I think he has more enthusiasm for SpaceX than he does for Tesla at this point.
I think you're absolutely right.
By far.
Yeah. No, you hear that in his comments. It's fascinating to get him in this new arena, because he's a computer guy. Basically, he's not a car guy. He's never been a car guy. He's certainly never been a manufacturing guy. And the thing that graded me going back to 2016 and before was he would just talk about car making, and it wasn't just that his ideas were bad, but the way he talked about it made it clear he didn't spend time around people who know this stuff. He has no actual passion or enthusiasm for it. This space and then AI and data centers and computers and stuff, this is what he actually cares about. And I think you're right. I think it's probably a huge contributor to his better performance, is just that he is at a base level more comfortable with this topic. It's sort of like me talking about Tesla versus me trying to talk about SpaceX.
Yeah. Well, he laid down, these markers for all the things Tesla's going to achieve in the next 6 months, in the next year.
Yeah.
And, so we have the new baselines. We have, robotaxis making money while you sleep. We've got the SpaceX equivalent of that now. And time will tell how all that goes.
So I wanted to, since I have you here, I wanted to chat a little bit about your most recent Substack piece, Elon Musk's hubris may doom any Tesla SpaceX merger. We didn't get any talk about a Tesla SpaceX merger, but there was definitely talk about it during the Tesla call. And, there's been a lot of speculation about it. Can you just sort of sum up your piece and sort of the perspective that you're offering there?
Sure. Well, it seems Elon is interested in a Tesla SpaceX merger, just from the comments on that call.
Right.
Right now, he has immense conflicts of interest, running both of these companies. How much is Tesla paying for Terafab? Who decided that?
Yeah.
He's stolen all the Tesla AI opportunities, and he's having Tesla finance a lot of what SpaceX is doing that used to belong to Tesla.
Yep.
And it's a good thing none of these corporations is in Delaware anymore, because that would really be a problem. But Tesla is still a company subject to some sort of governance, whereas SpaceX is just, it's basically management. You've given management the complete free right to defraud you, lie to you, cheat you, and there's nothing you can do about it. So SpaceX is an ideal platform for him right now. And he has the two classes of stock, which let him exert complete control basically over SpaceX, something he doesn't have at Tesla. My sense is this, that people have talked about how, with all these conflicts and with the fact that the companies both have interests in robotics and AI, that they should merge. For me, Tesla is dying on the vine. It's a shrinking car company with speculative products in Optimus and Robotaxi that even the diehard fans are starting to get very impatient about. And I think Elon sees trouble ahead on that. So, they want to do a merger, and, we see the pattern, right? We've seen the pattern when when Solar City got into trouble, Tesla acquired Solar City. Then when we move into the SpaceX era, he buys Twitter, X is in trouble. He has XAI buy that in an all-stock deal where he makes up the value. XAI needs cash. He has SpaceX acquire XAI again in an all-stock deal where he makes up the value. And then he has SpaceX go public. The difference here, the dilemma Elon has, it seems to me, Ed, with Tesla, all the insiders have gotten out and are filthy rich and have made tons and tons of money. But that's not true with SpaceX. The insiders are all there, and they have very low bases in the stock, but they're counting on selling all this stock to retail. And they'd hope to, jam it down the throats of the S&P 500 index funds. It looks like they won't be able to do that. They've got the cooperation of NASDAQ. They've got the cooperation of the FTSE Russell, but that's just not enough for them.
Right.
And Elon designed, to me, it's a story of hubris. Elon, with SpaceX, more than anything he's ever done, he got to design the entire corporate structure, top to bottom. And he got to create the valuation, make it up. This is a money-losing company. As you know, it lost $5 billion last year. It's slowed down its rate of loss, but who the hell knows what kind of games they play with depreciation. And so he makes up a valuation of a company that is money-losing, that is burning cash, and he gets all of Wall Street on board because all of Wall Street, the private investors are so plugged into this and are so eager to get out with big profits. And he creates a governance structure where no one can touch him. And then he creates a IPO where there's a very tiny float. And this was his plan to have the same thing happen when Tesla got put into the S&P 500, to have massive stock escalation, price escalation. Yeah, we're seeing that in the aftermarket. There's a little less enthusiasm for SpaceX than there was. Today went crazy with Gamma, with all this options trading today. The whole market went nuts. Because, we've solved all our problems in the Middle East.
So was that a broader market thing? I was not.
It was a broader market thing, though. I can't look under the hood and tell you how much of this was special, but we're getting closer and closer to August 6th, and this was not a home run conference call.
No, I would say,
So anyway, to me, the insuperable problem that he has is he's, on August 6th, you have about 639 million shares that are outstanding today. Another 910 million shares get added, something like that, in a couple of days. That's an enormous amount of stock, and that's an enormous for somebody to soak up. That's my dog barking because somebody. Okay.
He's got thoughts on the
he's off
on the stock too.
She's a Sato off the streets of Puerto Rico. So all these unlocks are going to proceed through November, and then after that, Elon gets his big unlock. I'm sorry about the noise.
No worries.
And I don't see. There's going to be great down. By the way, I continue to caution against trying to short Tesla, to try to short SpaceX. Let the pros have all the fun they want, but these are risky things to do, especially in the stock market, insane, degenerate gambling environment we're in. But just the pressure from all that, and on top of that, you have Anthropic and OpenAI wanting to do an IPO themselves. That's going to soak up a lot of cash in the market. You have all the big players, Alphabet and Meta and Amazon and others are looking to go borrow enormous amounts in the debt markets. And there's a huge demand out there for investor dollars. And I don't see how you're going to sustain the price of SpaceX. Now, so Elon's told some really great stories to get us through the end of the year. And today we heard a lot of them. But just the laws of supply and demand mean you're going to tamp down the price. And I think that when you see a price coming in below the IPO price, and people realizing the longer they wait, the lower they can get a price, I'm not sure how Tesla investors are going to feel about all this as it all games out. I mean, on top of that, for Tesla to merge with SpaceX, most people believe Tesla would have to shed its Chinese assets. And
so that's a huge piece.
All of its profit plus comes from China. The profit it makes on cars is the cars that are made cheaply in China with cheap labor, cheap parts, sent to Europe. Okay, and the batteries, the battery manufacturer in China is crucial to Tesla, the low-cost batteries. And if you shed that stuff, Tesla is now a money-losing enterprise. And it's going to get hard. The already people are starting to scratch their head about Elon Musk. This IPO was really such a crazy gamble with the $1.75 trillion valuation that he made up for it.
Yeah.
And I just think, and let me just say this, I'm worried about the world too. The new deal in the Strait of Hormuz is evidently that we're going to let Iran and Oman tax people 5% for going through the strait. Well, thank you very much. You're going to have a lot of impossible to predict, but there will be consequences, and they won't be happy consequences. And you're going to see some political foment that's hard to predict as well. And I just don't see it going as swimmingly as Elon Musk hoped it would when he launched this IPO.
Yeah. Elon, believing in Elon is a little bit of a luxury belief. Like, it's a little bit of something that you do if you can afford to. And when you can afford to, and when things, sort of all seem like, when interest rates are low and everything is booming and Silicon Valley is at the peak of its power, and the backlash is only just beginning, and all these things, he presents as this titanic figure. But then as the vibe shifts, right, as macro situation falls apart, as AI vibe sort of, again, I'm not like AI is just going to implode and disappear. Clearly that's, things have changed, but clearly also there's enthusiasm there that can't all pan out. The macro situation, I think the only complication is Tesla being in the EV business. Maybe they can sell a subpar product for longer if Straits of Hormuz creates if the energy component of the sort of cloudy landscape, let's call it, sort of comes to the foreground. But that one piece aside, which again, I also, there's a lot of issues, but you're right. Oil goes up doesn't just mean people buy more Teslas. But as the sort of comfortable conditions that have always surrounded Elon Musk, the Elon Musk phenomenon, start to fall away, there's this the question starts to become like, well, what's in this for me? And like, that's always been the thing that was sort of implicit psychologically. Again, he's just sort of abstracting away all the business stuff and, the calculuses that people sort of make about it. Being an Elon Musk believer has had financial rewards. It's also had a lot of social credit to be earned out of being an Elon Musk fan by publicly stating your belief in him. And that's all sloughing away and going by the wayside. And so I think that, what's been fascinating about this long journey for me, it's been a long journey from understanding the businesses that he's in and how they might change and EV adoption and autonomous vehicles and now AI and all these other things. The lesson for me of the last decade is like all that sort of rigorous analysis. And I hate to say this on the stream because this is what we're trying to provide as a little bit of a counterpoint. It hasn't mattered because this is fundamentally a psychological phenomenon.
Well, it is.
Right?
And you make a good point about AI. Psychologically, what people believe about AI has changed a lot.
Yes.
The people are, it's become there's sort of a political liability associated with it suddenly. Yep. And which is in some part maybe Luddite, but also financially, people are saying, how the hell are you ever going to monetize these investments?
That's right.
When the Chinese keep coming up with cheaper and cheaper stuff that can do almost everything you can do with spending, hundreds of billions of dollars. So the premise of the AI investment thesis is being questioned.
Yeah,
and I think that's got to hurt. And then on the Tesla, go ahead.
No, I said especially if you're fourth, fifth place in that race, right?
Yeah. You, as you said, the Yugo of Grok is the Yugo of LLMs, and XAI is the I don't know what is that cheap year the Russian car.
Well, Dacia is the cheapest one in Europe right now. It's a Romanian car.
It's the Dacia of AI companies.
Yeah. Well, so Dacia is actually selling well in Europe because it is a low-cost option. It's a complicated metaphor. The car business is confusing, but no, I wanted to. So one of the points that you bring up in your piece that I think is so central to the psychological aspect of all of this, and that gives away what the game is here, and sort of hints at how shaky the future might be, is this historical pattern. And I'm a big believer in looking at historical patterns in order to predict the future. It's kind of the only thing we have to go on. And historical patterns can mislead. But when it comes to Elon Musk, the pattern is so clear. Elon Musk's companies, even ones that he's only tangentially like not directly in control of, like Solar City, they can't fail. They can never be allowed to fail. And it's because he's a confidence artist. Yeah. There always has to be, he tends to not build great businesses. And so these companies often get into trouble. And even sometimes they're conceptually flawed from regardless of how well they're run operationally. So conceptually, they're often flawed. And when they run into trouble, they can never just sort of fail. And he can never just sort of have his reflective moment of this is what I got wrong or whatever else. There always has to be a way to scoop it up before it does fully fail, because failure is contagious, just as success is contagious, right? Just as Elon Musk's whole thing is you create the perception of success, and then people buy into it, which feeds then the reality of success, right? Whether it's on the investment side or the consumer side or whatever else it is. And he understands that well enough to know that the opposite is true. The moment you have a crack, that a real, undeniable, unspinnable failure takes place in the form of a bankruptcy of a company that is directly associated with him, that then creates questions in the minds of his investors and of any observer of wait a second, there's cracks in the armor. The facade is shaking. What don't we know about what's going on here? And this gets people curious and concerned. And this is how confidence breaks down. And when confidence breaks down, it breaks down really, really fast.
Yeah, I think you can underestimate how rapidly it can happen. It can happen really quickly. And you have also a lot of diehard Tesla believers still believe, and they say, wait a minute, Elon, you just promised us we're going to get really rich with robotaxis and Optimus. What are you talking about merging our company with SpaceX? We don't do the same thing as SpaceX. Do what you promised to do over here. Yeah. You're finally starting to see some of that, which is good. You have people at SpaceX saying, hey, we had this really exciting rocket company. We were going to Mars. Now we're no longer going to Mars. And we own your stupid X social media site. And now we own XI. We're saddled with this idiotic artificial intelligence albatross when we could have been, doing all these visionary things in space. And it's hard to keep good people when you keep doing stuff like that. And given, if SpaceX continues to have the bleed in share price, which I think, is probable given the vast amount of supply unlocking,
right? Stock-based
compensation doesn't look as beautiful anymore. It's easier for competitors to hire people away. And I see more, I can see some real fighting about what should be the exchange rate in the merger too between these two companies, because Elon is hopelessly conflicted on that.
Yeah.
You could see lawsuits even in Texas.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the problem that I see with the merger is Tesla's valuation is so high. Now, granted, SpaceX's is quite high as well, but they're dropping $60 billion on Cursor. There's lots of mouths to feed at SpaceX. And the question, I think, and I think the question of the role of the Chinese operations is central to this, is like, how do you glide path Tesla in a way, right? So we're talking about it's a confidence game, and the problem is that once confidence shakes, it can dive really, really fast because it's not anchored. You have not built perceptions of this and valuations that are anchored to actual financial performance. And so if it's just anchored to confidence, then when confidence cracks, it's like, where do you find that bottom?
Well, so that's always been the only anchor, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we've been saying this since 2018. It's like, we don't know when the confidence is going to get lost, but when it does, it will go down much faster than it went up for sure. How Tesla, because Tesla is clearly in a holding pattern, their core business may sort of bump along due to the energy costs and things like that, but it's not growing, it's not going anywhere. How you sort of glide path that down, somehow cut out the Chinese piece of it, which is central, and maintain enough, right? Like you erode the confidence enough to get the valuation down to a price where SpaceX can pull off a merger, without it all just sort of falling apart in the process. Because if it falls apart, like if you break it in the process of trying to merge it, you're screwed, because then the thing that you're trying to avoid, which is the failure of the messy, uncontrolled failure of a company and the spiraling confidence problems that creates, like the cat's out of the bag at that point. So it's going to be tricky. And I'm not only is it hard to see the path, but it's also hard to see, like, how does Elon sort of orchestrate that?
Well, and as I say, in that piece that I put up a couple of days ago, he has a little bit of a God complex. And that's really dangerous. And he thinks he's going to be able to do this. And I think he is, he's out over his skis on this one. And I know he's pulled stuff off before, but this idea of valuing SpaceX at $1.7 trillion was such a terrible, outrageous, stupid idea. It's going to really complicate a lot of things for him and for Tesla in the months ahead. And I think the merger gets much more complicated with that. And short of a merger, I don't see what's the end game for Tesla here. It's unless we, Optimus suddenly is in factories building real robo-taxis, it's finished.
Yeah, well, we're waiting for everything, right? We're waiting for full self-driving. We're waiting for Optimus. We're waiting for V3. We're waiting for Starship. We're waiting for the upgraded Starlink. It's everything is at the precipice, and the question is, how long does he have to sort of tap dance, and sort of keep it going along? I see the SpaceX IPO a lot like his involvement with Donald Trump, in the sense that it was a short-term thing that I think he had to do. I think that, something had to happen. The Elon Musk complex so in the case of Trump, he needed to stay out of prison. There's a little bit more cut and dried there. With SpaceX, he had to pay off, long-term investors. He had to get, employees have been waiting forever to be fully compensated for their work, making everything happen. I think it was so I think now we have a couple of decisions in a row that were short-term decisions that looked really good. I mean, you remember when Trump won the election, I mean, Tesla stock went crazy. Right. And none of this would have been possible. None of his maneuvering over the last year would have been possible without getting Trump elected. So it's not that these things aren't accomplishments. It's that he's having to pull off these massive, efforts and all they do is sort of buy, like a year or so. And meanwhile, everything else that actually props up all of these businesses, his entire empire, is all stuck because he's sold things that are impossible to deliver on.
Yeah. To get to the politics, and I don't, how I feel about Donald Trump. And by the way, I was a Republican most of my life, and I just despise the guy. And I despise Elon Musk for helping elect him, but he's all in on the midterms now.
Right.
And it goes to show how very difficult it's going to be to, hold on, a little ice machine action here.
No worries.
Okay. Loach? So it seems to me we have another level of unpredictability here. What happens if the midterms are a washout for Trump? And I think Trump has probably disaffected everybody on the left that pays any attention to politics. So there's probably not much more of that left. But if Trump becomes a lame duck, and investigations begin and impeachment and all that begins, and it's not going to be footsie, there are going to be some hard questions asked. Elon Musk may lose a lot of his political protection and regulatory protection. And these things are impossible to foresee. It's hard to say when or exactly how, but it's yet another highly volatile explosive that's thrown into this mix.
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that Trump, right, like Elon, has no loyalty to anyone makes him not exactly the most comforting port in a storm, right? I mean, again, when you're desperate, and they were both desperate, and they were sort of hanging on to each other for dear life, the relationship kind of was able to make a certain amount of sense. Obviously, they haven't been able to sustain it. And obviously, Trump is the kind of guy that, if he sees the writing on, I mean, to me, like, one of the, and I think we're at this stage of proceedings where I no longer think that this is going to happen. But in theory, like, Trump and his minions are the type of crowd where if they get the sense of like, oh wait, Elon is a couple items of bad news away from completely bottoming out. I mean, I certainly wouldn't put it past at least elements of that crowd to short the stock and to take a shot at it. I mean, again, I think that was a scenario I entertained a little bit more at the beginning of the relationship than I do now. But I think, Elon certainly can't feel sort of permanently safe.
It was just a year ago. He said he was going to start a third party. Remember, right. Trump was an idiot all of a sudden. Yeah. Then he came crawling back. I think he's irremediably wed to Trump, and I think his money's too important in the midterms for any rift to happen between now and then. But there's a weird, when you hear a Trump cabinet meeting and everybody lavishing praise on Trump, and then you listen to a Musk conference call and everybody lavishing praise on Elon Musk, it's kind of the parallels just continue to grow.
Yeah.
But again, lots of unknowns. But I think pulling off a Tesla merger is going to be a lot more difficult than the other bailouts that Musk has managed so far. And I think in large part that's because he settled on a absurd valuation for SpaceX while he still has all of his private investors who need to get the hell out.
Yeah.
And they're going to be worried about that.
So last question I kind of wanted to chop up real quick, and I'll let you go. Is sort of this question of, so with Tesla, we had what he pulled off was pretty remarkable, where Tesla was a company that was going to dominate the auto industry. And then it made this shift to a technology company, right? And there was overlap between these, and he sort of feathered out the sort of original mission of we're going to build, affordable mass market cars and just continue to build until we're making 20 million units a year, twice the size of the biggest automakers around, to all of a sudden it's like it's not about volume anymore. It's right. About autonomous vehicles, and then now with the robots, with SpaceX, because of this historical pattern you mentioned, where he's just rolled one company, right? It was X got rolled into XAI, got rolled into SpaceX. There's so much going on. I mean, and so it was interesting to hear the call, because I don't know how you listen to this call and get a sense of what this company is actually doing. And so I think thus far it's been, in the IPO where it's just sort of about pure hype, and you're not having these earning calls where they have to pretend to be a real company, putting more stuff in the bag and making it more confusing about what's really going on. I think I get how that helps with one big hype push, but I wonder, having listened to the first call, if you feel like that strategy of just having so much stuff in the bag that you can sort of, it gives them the opportunity to pick and choose what they're wanting to talk about. But it also feels like, and by the way, this was a short call. This was much shorter than I think the Tesla calls have gotten shorter over time. But they used to have really long, in-depth calls. It feels like they're setting themselves up for a situation where even the believers will call in, will listen into these calls, and they'll be like, yeah, but what about this, right? What about the space data centers? What about that? There's so much going on that they can't really speak to this company in a way where it actually makes sense as a company. Does that, I don't know if I'm making any sense to you, or if this stuff doesn't even matter. What are your thoughts?
I want to go back and look at the transcript carefully. they threw out some, the broadband story they're trying to tell is pretty amazing. It needs to be evaluated and picked apart. The
NeoCloud
annual recurring revenue story they're telling, $100 billion. Well. So I would like to know some details. When they were asked for details, the only names we heard were Anthropic and Google. That we're going to be paying. Did you hear another name? Maybe I missed something.
No, they didn't mention it. So presumably, they said we've done more business in July. So presumably we'll get that disclosed in the next quarterly earnings. But they didn't disclose who that was with.
Why wouldn't that be
an announcement? Yeah,
I don't. Anyway. The story never ends, does it?
It really doesn't. No, and at least now with this call, we do, we at least now know, okay, these are the things that they want to talk about. And so this gives us things like that 100 billion ARR number, the 1,000 satellites in space by Q2. That was also another one that really jumped out as like, okay, like, that gives us something to measure you against.
And Musk said, we have solved the problem of these heat tiles.
Yeah.
Now there's the quarterly report says they're advancing toward. Doesn't that sound familiar? We're advancing toward full and rapid reusability.
Yeah.
But he went way beyond that. We have solved it.
Yeah. At some point, I mean, people are going to have to ask how many more flights is this going to take? Because I mean, I think already someone mentioned that I think the Delta V rocket only flew fewer than 15 times. So they've basically done the entire lifespan of the Delta V, a rocket that accomplished basically every major space accomplishment in this country's history. And they can't get it to orbit in the same number of launches.
Well, I think you're going to see the big hype for the next launch will be the Mechazilla catch of the Starship, which I believe they can do. But can they then turn that thing around in a matter of days or weeks even? Ready for relaunch again, and we'll see. We'll see what there are people on the internet who are really smart talking about the tile damage that they see in that thing floating in the ocean.
Yeah,
and not saying it can't be repaired, but it's not something you're going to do in a matter of days or weeks. It's still a problem. And anyway, Ed.
Yeah. Well, I will say,
I think Alex Gibney's timing might be good.
I think his time is extremely good. I'm getting very excited for that. We are basically about just a little over a month away from Musk debuting at the Venice Film Festival, which I think be on hand for, which I'm very excited about. I'll certainly be in the area. Whether I have a ticket yet is remains to be seen. But if you have any opportunity to walk a red carpet, you have to put yourself in a position to take it. So that's what I'm doing. And so anyway, we'll have a lot more of these calls. I certainly think that the launches are going to be a lot more exciting now that we have this stock ready to drop anytime anything goes wrong. So if nothing else, the entertainment factor is continues to go up.
All right. Be well. Good talking to you.
Likewise. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for tuning into the stream. Really appreciate you all. We had a great lively chat. Sorry I wasn't able to participate in it more, but we'll see you guys back here for the next call. And actually probably before then, we've got some interviews that will be coming up. So look for that, and we'll see you back here on another live stream.